Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Channo.
And I'm Hem Korsara. And on the show today, the United States has accused Russia of interference in the 2024 presidential election. The White House says Russia has been trying to interfere in the election through a sophisticated campaign of influence. This includes fake websites and news sites to push Russian propaganda. We'll get you to the latest on this on the show today.
Also on World DNA. Meanwhile, over in the war front, Russian strikes on Ukraine continue as Russia intensifies its attack. Kiev says Russian strikes on West Ukraine's Lviv, hundreds of kilometers from the front, killed 7 people. Now, this comes just a day after Russia's deadliest bombardment on Poltava. Stay tuned for all the developments on that front as well. This is World DNA. Let's get started with the headlines.
The United States indicts 2 employees of Russia's RT Media and sanctions top editors of the state-funded news outlet over attempts to influence 2024 US presidential election. White House says Russian President Vladimir Putin was aware of RT's actions.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, responding to a question about the potential delivery of long-range US missiles to Ukraine, warns the US not to joke about Russia's red lines.
A 14-year-old arrested for killing 2 students and 2 teachers at school shooting in United States, Georgia. Police say suspect to be charged for murder as an adult.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau dismisses talks of early elections after new Democratic Party withdraws support for Liberal Party-led government.
Several people switch off lights for an hour in India's Kolkata to show support as protests continue over the rape and murder of a trainee doctor.
At least 6 people were killed and 3 are still missing after a passenger boat sinks on a river in the Peruvian Amazon.
US job openings dropped to a 3.5-year low in July, suggesting the labor market was losing steam. Analysts believe it's not enough to warrant a 0.5 percentage point interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve this month.
Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo failed to make it to the list of Ballon d'Or nominees for the first time since 2003. Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr. and Erling Haaland lead the 30-player men's list.
Our top story on World DNA this morning, the White House has accused Russia of attempting to interfere in the upcoming US presidential election.
Well, and it has announced wide-ranging actions against 2 employees of the Russian-backed media network RT, which was formerly known as Russia Today. Now, the network runs online and TV platforms around the world with an aim to advance Kremlin's agenda.
Attorney General Merrick Garland announced charges against the employees, accusing them of money laundering and violating the Foreign Agents Registration Act.
In Miami. This morning, we unsealed an indictment in the Southern District of New York of Konstantin Kalashnikov and Elena Afanasieva, 2 Russian-based employees of RT, a Russian state-controlled media outlet. They are charged with conspiring to commit money laundering and to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act.
He further outlined that the tactics used by the employees include using state media like RT to advance anti-US messages and amplify on polarizing political topics such as immigration, crime rate in US or the war in Gaza.
Garland accused the 2 RT employees of implementing a $10 million scheme to hire a Tennessee-based company to publish and disseminate pro-Russian content. The company then contracted with US-based social media influencers to share the content on their platforms.
We allege that as part of that effort, RT and its employees, including the defendants, implemented a nearly $10 million scheme to fund and direct a Tennessee-based company to publish and disseminate content deemed favorable to the Russian government.
He also imposed sanctions on top editors of the state-funded news outlet. Those sanctioned by the Treasury Department include RT Editor-in-Chief Margarita Simonian and her deputy. In other action, US officials have announced the seizure of 32 internet domains that were used by the Kremlin to spread Russian propaganda and weaken global support for Ukraine, and have further said that Washington will implement a new policy to restrict visa issuance to certain individuals who act on behalf of the Kremlin-supported media organizations.
We are announcing a new policy to restrict visa issuance to certain individuals who, acting on behalf of Kremlin-supported media organizations, use those organizations as cover for covert activities and are responsible for or complicit in these malign efforts.
According to US officials, Russian President Vladimir Putin's inner circle had directed Russian public relations companies to promote disinformation and state-sponsored narratives to influence the presidential polls. The White House has also said that the Russian president was aware of these actions. All right, for more on this, we now have with us political analyst Spencer Krishley, who is also the former communications advisor for Obama campaigns, joining us live from California. So thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Pleasure to be here.
So now, given the upcoming elections and of course what we're also seeing on the war front, the war between Russia and Ukraine, do you think that these would have a larger implication, these sanctions that have been brought forth?
Yes, I think that the announcement by the Justice Department is very significant, and it's clear that they want to warn Americans. They're not just announcing the prosecutions in each individual case here. They want to warn Americans of the extensiveness of the Russian influence campaign, as well as influence campaigns that appear to originate from Iran and China. And for relatively small amounts of money, as we saw in the 2016 election, as well as the 2020 election, Russia and other countries hostile to American democracy can have outsized impact, especially by exploiting emotionally intense issues that will provoke Americans into fighting with each other, which I think is one of the chief objectives, is to promote division and to undermine confidence in democracy.
Mr. Krishley, now, as per US officials, it was Vladimir Putin's inner circle that directed Russian public relations companies to promote disinformation to influence US presidential polls. Now, there is a lot of talk about how these acts were being done to influence the polls. Do you foresee, or do you think Vladimir Putin was perhaps influencing to have a possible Trump re-election? Because we know it's a Trump versus Harris match now. Do you feel this was in favor of Trump, that these implications were taking place?
Oh, yes, I think clearly so. And the internal documents that the U.S. Justice Department has managed to get hold of, the Russian internal documents, seem to indicate that pretty clearly. And it's not surprising, because President Trump has expressed his open admiration, bordering really on adoration, for Vladimir Putin on multiple occasions, including praising what he called the brilliance of Putin's original invasion of Ukraine. Trump has also shown himself to be supremely easy to manipulate. All you need to do is flatter him, and he seems to be willing to do whatever you like, especially if you're an authoritarian like Putin. So I'm sure that Trump is by far Putin's favored candidate, because he can essentially, if Trump wins, use him as a virtual puppet.
All right, Mr. Crashly, we'll let you go for now. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA. Always a pleasure speaking with you and getting all your insights on matters.
All right, with that, let's shift our focus now. Kyiv says a Russian strike on West Ukraine's Lviv, hundreds of kilometers from the front, killed 7 people, including 4 members of the same family.
Well, the attack comes just a day after Russia's deadliest single bombardment this year that left 53 people dead in the central city of Poltava. Our next report brings you all the details.
Burning cars, damaged building, entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble. That's how the Ukrainian city of Lviv looks like. The city is the latest to bear the brunt of a deadly Russian missile attack. Firefighters had a tough time working through the rubble. The survivors narrate their horror.
I was in the apartment during the explosion. The rocket hit our house. Everything was blown away. During the explosion, I was somehow in the corridor, so I was not badly hurt. But the apartment and the street were badly damaged.
We live on the ground floor. It's destroyed, and part of my apartment is gone. My husband is injured. He's in the hospital. My son and I were saved.
The latest strike highlights the escalating tensions along NATO's eastern flank. Lviv's proximity to Poland, a mere 60 kilometers from the border, has triggered alarm bells across the alliance. Polish forces scrambled aircrafts for the third time in just over a week, underscoring the growing unease in the region. Lviv, which is far away from the eastern borders where intense fighting is on, was considered relatively safe until now. As Russia rained down yet another wave of missile attacks, Ukraine's Air Force fought back, managing to shoot down 7 of the 13 missiles and 22 of 29 drones. The attack follows on the heels of the war's deadliest single strike this year. Just a day earlier, Russian ballistic missiles obliterated the Poltava Military Institute of Communication, claiming over 50 lives and wounding hundreds. Moscow's recent campaign of intensified bombardment is widely seen as retaliation for Ukrainian incursions into Russian territory. Escalation has prompted President Zelensky to appeal for expanded capabilities, urging allies to grant Ukraine the means to strike deeper into Russia. For report, WION World is One.
Russia is bombing Ukraine, and this week it fired hundreds of missiles, causing death and destruction.
One of the missiles fired by Russia on Wednesday landed near the Polish border. The ripples of the attack were felt hundreds of kilometers away in Berlin.
Now, Germany has put a first air defense system into service on its own soil after having delivered several of them to Ukraine to intercept Russian rockets, drones and missiles. Chancellor Olaf Scholz says the surface-to-air system is part of a build-up of German and European defenses launched after Russia launched the Ukraine invasion in 2022.
Germany claims Putin has broken disarmament treaties and deployed missiles as far as Kaliningrad, a Russian enclave located some 530 kilometers from Berlin.
Olaf Scholz says, and I'm going to quote him here, it would be negligent not to respond to this appropriately and that a failure to act would put peace at risk. I will not allow that. The system is part of the European Sky Shield initiative, which also includes long-range defenses against ballistic missiles.
The German military has ordered 6 of the Iris-T SLM systems, which will be delivered by May 2027. It says the air defense system will play a key role in strengthening the European Air Defense Initiative Sky Shield.
Russia, on its part, says that the West, which is raising tensions. Moscow accuses the West of continuously arming Ukraine and thereby prolonging the war. Moscow is also angered by the decision of Washington to deploy long-range missiles in Germany, and this is being done for the first time since the Cold War has long angered Moscow.
On the other hand, Poland is leaving no stone unturned to boost its military capabilities. In the backdrop of an unrelenting war, Poland has inked a $285 million contract for air traffic control systems with Spanish company. Now, China leads the world when it comes to developing, testing and deploying hypersonic weapons, beating out Russia and the United States.
Well, as tensions escalate in the disputed South China Sea, Beijing is focusing on its strategy to keep costs minimum in the hypersonic arms race. Reports say a team of Chinese scientists have found a way to make a hypersonic missile with a steel nose cone, something that was unthinkable once upon a time. Researchers have unveiled a design for a hypersonic glide anti-ship missile where the shell of the warhead located at the very front of the missile is made from a widely available high-strength stainless steel.
Chinese researchers say their missile marks a key step in thermal protection technology. Steel begins to melt at around 1200 degrees Celsius, but the nose of a hypersonic weapon can hit temperatures of up to 3000 degrees in flight due to heating by the atmosphere. Moreover, the missile is designed to reach Mach 8 or 8 times the speed of sound.
The PLA has proposed using hypersonic weapons to attack US aircraft carrier strike groups, overseas military bases and facilities in the US, such as radar stations, in response to any American military intervention in the South China Sea or Taiwan. Though studies say a small number of hypersonic missiles will be enough to neutralize a carrier strike group, China's military feels the need of more new missiles to destroy a target. This will make cost an even bigger factor in the race to develop hypersonic weapons. Over 200 American and Swedish Marines have conducted an amphibious landing in Sweden during the first archipelago endeavour.
Now, this exercise is the first since Sweden joined NATO. Soldiers rushed off boats carrying Hellfire and Stinger launchers while drones hovered the banks. Take a look. And the race to the White House continues as Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump have returned to the U.S. campaign trail.
Vice President Kamala Harris announced a $50,000 tax deduction for entrepreneurs of small businesses. This as she continued to woo independent voters at a rally in New Hampshire on Wednesday. The Vice President has set her sights on independent voters as they outnumber both Democrats and Republicans in the state of New Hampshire.
According to government data, small businesses have created around 70% of the new jobs since 2019. As per a campaign official, the new incentive will act as a major boost in stimulating economic growth. Recent polls also showed Kamala Harris leading Donald Trump with a 6 percentage point lead in the state.
On the other hand, former President Donald Trump is in Pennsylvania for a 1-hour town hall with Fox News' Sean Hannity. The sit-down interview will focus on major issues that the US is facing, including Trump's ambitions and Harris' stance on policies. The interview comes as a prelude to Trump's September 10th debate with Democrat Kamala Harris in Philadelphia.
And for more on this, a correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report. Listen to this.
Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic presidential nominee, proposed policies to boost small business creation, including expanding the small business tax credit from $5,000 to $50,000. She aims to receive 25 million new small business applications during her first term if she's elected. Harris also broke with President Biden by calling for a lower increase in capital gain taxes, proposing a 28% rate for those making over $1 million. She says that she seeks to eliminate financial hurdles for entrepreneurs and promote economic growth as well as innovation. Regardless, she aims to distance herself from Biden's economic policies ahead of her debate with former President Donald Trump, who was in Pennsylvania for a town hall. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION The World as well.
Extremely disturbing news which has come in from Georgia in the United States. A 14-year-old student killed at least 4 people, including 2 fellow students and 2 teachers, and wounded 9 more when he opened fire at a high school in the US.
This was in the state of Georgia on Wednesday. Georgia Bureau of Investigation said the suspect, identified as Colt Cray, was taken in custody and will be charged and tried as an adult.
Well, the county sheriff said that the motive of the incident and if the shooter singled out specific people as targets is not yet known.
And our school resource officer engaged him, and the shooter quickly realized that if he did not give up, that it would end with an OIS, or an officer-involved shooting. He gave up, got on the ground, and the deputy took him into custody. Sure.
Students recall the moments of fear they experienced inside the school during the shooting. Some in the school initially thought it was just another shooter drill, referring to the controversial exercises common in US schools.
But yeah, a lot of us were just crying. All you hear is crying. All you hear is like the sirens from outside, so it made us even more scared because we were like, oh, it's real, it's real. We didn't know how to react.
It was said that there was a drill, but our school does drills, and I mean, they take it pretty serious, so everyone just thought it was a fake drill until my teacher was like, we didn't get no email, and like the students started taking it pretty serious.
The incident took place about 80 kilometers northeast of Atlanta. The school authorities sent a message to parents saying they were enforcing a hard lockdown after reports of gunfire. Soon enough, parents lined up in cars on a road outside the school, hoping to be reunited with their children.
By one tally, this is nearly 400 mass shootings in the United States this year alone. White House spokesperson said school shootings are not normal and called on Congress to pass legislation to ban assault weapons and pass red flag laws.
This is not normal. This is not normal. Students and teachers deserve to know that their schools are safe. They should focus on learning, not lockdowns. While the president and vice president have taken historic action to reduce gun violence, more must be done to keep our schools and communities safe. We continue to call on Congress to do something,
During a campaign stop in New Hampshire, Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris called the shooting at a Georgia high school a senseless tragedy and implored Americans to bring a halt to the epidemic of gun violence.
I suspect
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. Lots more on the other side. When we come back, we bring you more updates on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is set to hold a meeting with his Singaporean counterpart, Lawrence Wong. Prime Minister Modi is on a two-day official visit to Singapore. The visit is aimed at deepening the strategic partnership between the two nations. Stay tuned for that complete report.
The lower house of the Mexican Congress has approved a landmark hall of the nation's judiciary. Under this new law, judges will be chosen not through appointments but by contesting elections. Stay tuned for that.
This week on World of Africa, Chinese lenders approve $4 billion in loans to Africa in 2023, the first annual increase since 2016. Crime statistics in South Africa reveal alarming numbers. Over 6,000 people murdered between April and June this year, most of them women and children. And Morocco embraces eco-tourism by offering visitors more sustainable experiences. All this and more this week on World of Africa at these times.
Namaste. Hello friends. We did Dr. Subhash Chandra show, popularly known as DSC show, for 4 years from August 2014 to August 2018. 28 states of Bharat. Of course, we reached out to all of you in 190 countries across the world. The show was very successful. Each episode was being watched by almost 25 million people every week. For past 6 years, the demand of the show has never died down. People write to us, people ask for the show to restart again. Hence, we are beginning the show once again on All Z Network, also on WION, which is the global network channel from India. Again, thank you for your love and affection. See you soon at Subhash Chandra Show.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at yoursarthi@such.org.in.
Welcome back to World DNA. Thank you so much for staying with us. Lots lined up for you on this side of the show as well. Let's get started with the headlines first.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi receives a ceremonial welcome at Parliament House on the second day of his Singapore visit. Interacts with Singapore Prime Minister Lawrence Wong.
The United States indicts 2 employees of Russia's RT Media and sanctions top editors of the state-funded news outlet over attempts to influence 2024 US presidential election. White House says Russian President Vladimir Putin was aware of RT's actions.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, responding to a question about the potential delivery of long-range US missiles to Ukraine, warns the US not to joke about Russia's red lines.
A 14-year-old arrested for killing 2 students and 2 teachers at school shootings in the United States, Georgia. Police say suspect to be charged for murder as an adult.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau dismisses talks of early elections after New Democratic Party withdraws support for Liberal Party-led government.
Several people switch off lights for an hour in India's Kolkata to show support as protests continue over the rape and murder of a trainee doctor.
At least 6 people were killed and 3 are missing after a passenger boat sinks in a river in the Peruvian Amazon.
US job openings dropped to a 3.5-year low in July, suggesting the labor market was losing steam. Analysts believe it's not enough to warrant a 0.5 percentage point interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve this month.
Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo failed to make it to the list of Ballon d'Or nominees for the first time since 2003. Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr. and Erling Haaland lead the 30-player men's list.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is meeting his Singaporean counterpart Lawrence Wong today.
Prime Minister Modi is on a 2-day official visit to Singapore. The visit is aimed at deepening the strategic partnership between the two nations. The Indian Prime Minister received a ceremonial welcome at Singapore's Parliament House. And during official bilateral talks between Modi and Wong, Indian and Singaporean, both nations, they've signed MOUs. At least 4 pacts on semiconductors, digital technology, health and skill development are expected to be signed. According to reports, a joint statement on the semiconductor ecosystem partnership is being discussed.
Prime Minister Modi arrived in Singapore on Wednesday after wrapping up his visit to Brunei. He met Prime Minister Wong over a meal ahead of the official meeting. Prime Minister Modi said in a social media post that they had had an excellent discussion on a wide range of issues and that India cherishes its friendship with Singapore.
Later in the day, Modi will also call on President Tharman and meet with other senior ministers. Before wrapping up his visit, Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to participate in a roundtable with Singaporean business leaders as well. Now, the lower house of the Mexican Congress has approved a landmark overhaul of the nation's judiciary. Under this new law, judges will be chosen not through appointments, but by contesting elections.
Now, the overwhelming vote has now paved the way for this constitutional reform that will be debated a week from now in the Mexican Senate. If passed, it could prove to be a watershed moment for Mexican jurisprudence. Take a look.
Mexico's lower house of Congress approved a controversial judicial reform on Wednesday after a marathon session that lasted more than 12 hours. It paves the way for the bill to go to the Senate, where it is expected to be approved due to the ruling Morena party's strong majority. Judicial workers and students protested the vote outside of Congress, forcing lawmakers into a nearby gym. They want to have this gift ready before the incumbent president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, leaves office, said this court clerk at the protest. The debate began on Tuesday afternoon, passing Wednesday morning with 359 votes in favor and 135 votes against. Opponents criticized the single-session debate and passage as a rush job, saying more time should have been taken. The backbone of the constitutional reform calls for the election by popular vote of more than 7,000 judges and magistrates, including the Supreme Court. The number of Supreme Court judges would also be reduced to 9 from 11, and their terms limited to 12 years. Work experience needed to qualify for ministerial positions would be cut in half. Outgoing President López Obrador has argued that reform is necessary to hold judges accountable and reduce corruption. President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum is also in support. Critics have said the reform will not impact prosecutors, police, and public ministries, which they blame as the real culprits of impunity and corruption. It also generated concern among investors and the U.S. ambassador to Mexico, who worry it would weaken a crucial check and balance of the executive branch and damage the business climate in the country.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that he will only agree to a permanent ceasefire deal in Gaza on the condition that it is not used as a lifeline for Hamas.
And this comes as calls for a ceasefire deal are growing both in and outside Israel. Addressing a press conference in Jerusalem, Netanyahu outrightly rejected the intention to withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor in the first phase of the deal, expected to last 42 days, adding that international pressure would make it effectively impossible to return.
We're committed to achieving our goals. All 3 goals: destroying Hamas's military and governing capabilities, releasing all our hostages, and ensuring that Gaza does not become a threat to Israel anymore. And all these require standing firm on the things that will ensure the achievement of these goals. And with God's help, and with our people's will, and with the courage of our soldiers, we'll achieve all goals. And all 3 of those goals, all 3 of them, go through Israel's control of the Philadelphia corridor. And it's obvious why. You want to destroy Hamas's military and governing capabilities, you can't let Hamas rearm. It's obvious. So you have to control the corridor.
Netanyahu also accused Hamas of rejecting all proposals for a ceasefire deal in Gaza that would allow the release of hostages, as Israeli army released a video which shows a tunnel where the bodies of 6 hostages were recovered.
At the same time, protests in central Tel Aviv persisted into a 4th consecutive night on Wednesday, calling for Prime Minister Netanyahu to negotiate a ceasefire agreement to safely bring back remaining hostages.
The public anger against Netanyahu has gone up since the Israeli forces discovered the remains of 6 hostages in the southern Gaza tunnels just last week.
Now, the Philadelphia corridor, which runs along southern edge of the Gaza Strip bordering Egypt, it's proven to be a stumbling block in striking a peace deal, which could essentially halt the fighting in Gaza, enabling Israel to bring back hostages in exchange of Palestinian prisoners.
Meanwhile, the families of several Israeli hostages, including that of 6 bodies which were recovered from a tunnel in southern Gaza on Sunday, accused Netanyahu of sacrificing their loved ones by insisting to keep the troops in the corridor. On the other hand, the governor of Jenin in occupied West Bank, Kamal Abu al-Rab, has said that the situation in Israeli closed military areas is bad. He said the Israeli army was preventing water and food from getting to families trapped in the besieged areas, and that they have been forced to leave their homes.
The situation in the areas which are under siege is bad. The Israeli army is preventing food, water, ambulances and journalists from reaching these besieged areas. So we don't know what is happening in the areas which they consider to be military closed areas. We are getting lots of calls for help.
Meanwhile, top UN officials on peace building and humanitarian affairs met and discussed the situation in Gaza at the UN Security Council, where a war of words ensued between Israel and Palestinian representatives. The meeting was requested by Israel, backed by its veto-holding allies, France, Great Britain and the United States.
For weeks now, India's eastern state of West Bengal has been at the epicenter of a raging public protest where people, especially doctors, have been demanding justice and safe work environments.
This after a young female trainee doctor was raped and murdered. On Wednesday night, thousands turned off the lights around them and gathered outside the Arjikar Medical College and Hospital in Kolkata to hold a candlelight vigil. Take a look.
Now, at a time when Bangladesh is still emerging out of weeks of political turmoil triggered turbulence, Dhaka has decided not to export a specific fish to India during the festive season.
This as it results in a steep domestic price rise. Hilsa fish is a popular delicacy in the eastern part of India, and its consumption increases during the festival of Durga Puja. The Hindu festival is the most auspicious festival in states of West Bengal and Assam.
The decision was taken during a closed-door meeting of Bangladesh's interim government, and it has justified it to keep the prices of Hilsa fish low during the festive season in the country. Now, prices of Hilsa fish in Bangladesh rise sharply due to its spiking demands in neighboring India during the festival, and the prices soar up from 1,200 to 1,300 rupees per kg, which is about $14 to $15 to about 1,500 to 1,700 rupees per kg during Durga Puja, equaling about $18 to $20.
In 2023, Bangladesh exported over 3,500 tons of Hilsa fish to India. The imports from Bangladesh are constantly on the rise since 2021. This is not the first time that Bangladesh has halted export of the Hilsa fish to India. Diplomatic hurdles have affected ties between New Delhi and Dhaka, like in 2021. Then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina reduced exports of Hilsa, citing India's reduced supply of water. Now, in a move that highlights the growing impact of China's Common Prosperity campaign, a major development has emerged in the financial sector. China Merchant Fund Management.
Well, one of China's top fund management firms is taking an unprecedented step. Well, the firm is demanding that senior executives return pay exceeding a new salary cap set by the government. Now, China Merchants Fund Management, a key player in China's financial sector, is at a significant policy shift. The firm, fully owned by the state-run China Merchants Group, is enforcing a new salary cap as part of a broader government initiative aimed at reducing income inequality. Now, according to the sources, the company is requiring its senior executives and portfolio managers to repay any income that exceeds 3 million yuan, that is approximately $421,000 for each year from 2019 to 2023. Now, this move aligns with China's Common Prosperity campaign, which has been in effect since 2021. This initiative seeks to address social and economic imbalances amid slowing economic growth. Authorities are focusing on curbing extravagant lifestyles among China's financial elite, especially as fund managers have been reported to earn substantial profits despite a sluggish stock market. Now, in recent months, China Merchants Fund Management has already begun collecting repayments from some portfolio managers who were paid beyond the 3 million yuan threshold last year. The firm has noticed approximately 60 senior executives and portfolio managers about this new policy. This development has also seen other state-affiliated asset management firms like Bosera Asset Management, which is partially owned by China Merchants Group, introduce similar salary caps and clawback measures. Bosera Management has capped pay at 2.9 million yuan and is pursuing repayment from excess salaries.
As China continues to push for economic equality, these measures reflect a broader trend of increased scrutiny and regulations within the financial sector. This could have implications for how fund managers and other high-earning professionals across the country manage the compensation and careers.
All right, next up, let's quickly get you a glimpse of what's happening in technology, starting with Alice Guo, a dismissed town mayor who fled the Philippines after being accused of helping establish an illegal online gaming and scam center. He has been arrested in Jakarta, Indonesia's capital. Guo is accused of helping establish a massive complex near the Philippines town hall. This complex was being run as a hub for illegal online gambling and scam outfit that catered mostly to clients in China, where gambling is forbidden. After Guo fled the Philippines in July, she was tracked in Malaysia and Singapore before turning up in Indonesia. What's interesting to note here is that Guo contested the 2022 Philippine elections, having served as the mayor of the rural town of Bamban in north of Manila.
Social media giant Meta platforms will notify Brazilians about how their personal data will be used to train generative AI, following a request from Brazil's Data Protection Authority. Users in Brazil will be informed through email and notifications on Facebook and Instagram, with the option to decline the use of their data for AI training. In July, Brazil's National Data Protection Authority temporarily blocked Meta's new privacy policy over concerns about data usage for AI, but later lifted the suspension after Meta agreed to provide transparency. During that period, Meta also paused the use of AI tools, including popular WhatsApp AI-generated stickers, while it addressed the authority's concerns.
Two leaders of the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, or CPSC, are urging the agency to investigate online retailers Shein and Temu. This follows concerns that dangerous baby and toddler products were sold on their websites. Regulators are calling for a review of how Shein, Temu and other foreign-owned e-commerce platforms follow U.S. regulations, manage third-party sellers and represent imported goods. Shein and Temu, which ship inexpensive products from China to the US, are under scrutiny for exploiting a tariff exemption called de minimis. This rule allows packages valued at $800 or less to avoid tariffs when shipped directly to customers. Critics argue that this loophole, along with low prices, has fueled Shein and Temu's growth in the US, but it has also raised concerns about product quality.